Commander Jiho stood on the observation deck of the mining facility, watching the twin suns set over Kepler 442b. The planet was nothing special. Red dust, rocky mountains, and mining equipment as far as the eye could see. But it had something valuable buried in its crust, and that made it worth fighting for. His team was small. 12 soldiers. That was all Earth Defense Force could spare for this backwater colony. Dion was checking the explosives for the third time that day. The man never trusted his own work, which was exactly why Jiho wanted him on the team. Yuna was somewhere in the hills with her rifle, doing what she did best. The woman could hit a target from distances that seemed impossible. Hyan was organizing medical supplies in the depot, humming some old song from Earth. Sora was buried in computer screens, monitoring communications across 3 different alien languages. The rest of the team was scattered around the facility, running drills, checking equipment, staying sharp. They had been on Kepler 442b for 6 months. Quiet months. Boring months. Jiho almost missed the action. Halfway across the galaxy, Commander Dexvol was reading a contract. The Vortham Combine was the largest mercenary corporation in known space. They had toppled governments, wiped out rebel bases, and cleared entire planets for the right price. Dexvol had been with the Combine for 20 years. He had seen action on 40 different worlds. He was good at his job, and he knew it. The contract was simple. A rival faction wanted the humans gone from Kepler 442b. They were willing to pay extremely well for it. Dexvol looked at the briefing documents. 12 human soldiers. Special operations, the file said, but Dexvol had fought special forces before. Every species had their elite warriors. Every species thought they were the best. Humans were new to the galactic scene. Soft-worlders from a low-gravity planet with thin atmosphere. They had fought some small conflicts among themselves, but nothing serious. Nothing that would prepare them for real combat against experienced mercenaries. Dexvol called his crew together. 200 of the best fighters the Combine had to offer. Warriors from 6 different species, each bringing their own strengths. Heavy shock troops, stealth infiltrators, technical specialists, combat medics. This would be easy money. The target is a human military detachment, Dexvol announced. 12 soldiers defending a mining depot. We will deploy at night with overwhelming force. 50 troops for the initial assault. The rest will secure the perimeter and handle reinforcements if any arrive. One of his officers raised a concern. Sir, the files mention these are special operations soldiers. Should we not approach with more caution? Dexvol laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound. They are 12. We are 200. They have been sitting in that depot for half a year, growing soft and lazy. We have fought wars while these humans were still learning to leave their own solar system. No, we will hit them hard and fast. By sunrise, this contract will be completed. The crew seemed satisfied. They had worked together for years. They trusted their commander. More importantly, they trusted their numbers and their experience. Back on Kepler 442b, Sora's computer screen lit up with an alert. She studied the data for a moment, then reached for her communicator. Commander, we have incoming. Jiho was at her station in seconds. What do we have? Long-range scanners picked up a ship dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Military configuration. Based on the signature, I would say Mercenary Guild. Probably Vortham Combine. Jiho felt something shift in his chest. Not fear. Something else. Something that had been sleeping for 6 boring months. How many? Ship that size could carry 200 to 300 soldiers. They will be here in 6 hours. Jiho activated the team-wide channel. Listen up. We have hostile contact inbound. Estimated 200 plus enemy combatants. Mercenary Guild. They will likely hit us tonight. Doyen's voice came through first. Finally. I was getting tired of training exercises. Yuna checked in from her position in the hills. I have eyes on all approach vectors. Give me targets, and I will drop them. Hyen sounded calm as always. Medical station is ready. Try not to give me too much work tonight. The rest of the team confirmed ready status one by one. Jiho felt pride swell in his chest. These were professionals. The best Earth had to offer. They had been through selection courses that broke most candidates. They had trained in every environment Earth could offer, and a few alien worlds besides. They had practiced for scenarios exactly like this. Sora, I want to know everything about these mercenaries. Combat doctrine, previous engagements, species weaknesses. Dion, I hope you have been saving the good explosives. Yuna, find me the perfect nest. I want you able to cover the entire facility. Everyone else, positions as planned. We make this facility into a nightmare. As darkness fell over Kepler 442b, two forces prepared for battle. The mercenaries checked their weapons, confident in their numbers and experience. The humans moved through the facility like ghosts, setting traps, establishing fields of fire, preparing the ground itself to fight for them. Dexvol stood in his command ship, watching the scans of the facility below. 4 heat signatures. 4 humans. The others must be sleeping or in shielded areas. Perfect. Deploy Assault Team 1. 50 soldiers. Surround the facility and move in on my command. I want this over quickly. The mercenaries loaded into dropships, weapons ready. They had done this dozens of times before. It would be simple, but Commander Jiho was smiling in the darkness of the depot. 4 heat signatures. 4 decoys that Doyen had rigged up that morning, each one broadcasting false thermal readings. The real team was already in position, waiting in the cold storage sections where their body heat would not register on basic scans. The mercenaries thought they knew what they were facing. They would learn otherwise very soon. The mercenary dropships touched down 3 kilometers from the mining facility. Dexvol watched the tactical display as his soldiers moved into position. Everything was going according to plan. Thermal scans still showed 4 targets inside the main building. The humans had no idea what was coming. 50 mercenaries advanced through the darkness. They moved with practiced efficiency, using standard military doctrine that had worked on dozens of worlds. Shock troops in front, technical specialists in the middle, support units covering the rear. They had night vision, thermal imaging, and communication systems that linked every soldier to the command network. Yuna watched them through her rifle scope from a hill 1,200 meters away. She counted the soldiers, noted their formation, and calculated wind speed in her head. 1,200 meters was a long shot. Most species considered it impossible with portable weapons. But Yuna had made longer shots during training on Earth. She pressed her communication button once. The click told Jiho the targets were in position. The first mercenary never knew what hit him. Yuna's shot traveled across the distance and struck the squad leader in the head. He dropped instantly. The soldiers around him scattered, looking for cover, trying to understand where the shot came from. Thermal scans showed no one in that direction. How could someone shoot from where no one existed? Yuna fired again. Another mercenary down. Then another. She was not rushing. Each shot was calculated. Perfect. The mercenaries finally figured out the direction and returned fire, but they were shooting at shadows. Yuna had already moved to a different position. Dexvol watched in confusion as his advance team took casualties. Where's that shooter? I want coordinates now. Sir, thermal scans show nothing in that sector. Long-range scans are equally empty. Then the scans are wrong. Send Team 2 to flank that position. 20 more mercenaries moved to surround what they thought was Yuna's position. They found nothing. What they did not know was that Yuna had wrapped herself in a thermal blanket that masked her heat signature. She was practically invisible to their sensors. The main mercenary force reached the facility. They placed breaching charges on the doors. The explosions lit up the night. Mercenaries poured into the building, weapons ready, expecting to find 4 surprised humans. They found 4 thermal decoys that Diane had built from heating elements and basic electronics. No humans, no soldiers. Just tricks. That was when Doyen triggered his real explosives. He had spent 6 months preparing the facility. Every entrance, every corridor, every room had been rigged. The explosions were not meant to kill, though some mercenaries died in the blasts. They were meant to collapse pathways, cut off exits, divide the attacking force into smaller groups. And smaller groups were exactly what Jiho wanted. The human team moved through the facility like water, flowing through passages the mercenaries did not know existed. Maintenance tunnels, ventilation shafts, hidden access points that Sora had found in the facility blueprints months ago. They appeared behind enemy positions, fired precise bursts, and vanished before the mercenaries could respond. Hyan moved through the chaos with his medical kit and his rifle. He was a medic, but every human special forces medic was also a combat soldier. He found a group of 5 mercenaries trying to regroup in a storage room. They never saw him coming. 3 shots, 3 kills. The other 2 ran. Hyan let them go. Running enemies spread panic better than dead ones. Sora sat in a hidden computer room, fingers dancing across keyboards. She had hacked into the mercenary communication network within the first 10 minutes of combat. Now she fed them false information. Team 3. Target spotted in Section B. There was no Team 3 anymore. Section B was where Doyen had placed his largest explosive trap. Command, this is Unit 7. We are taking heavy fire and need support. Unit 7 was fine, but now other units would abandon their positions to help soldiers who did not need helping. Confusion spread through the mercenary force like poison. They could not find their enemy. Their sensors showed nothing. Their communications were unreliable. Every corridor could be a trap. Every shadow could hide a human soldier. Dexful screamed orders into his communicator. All units fall back to the landing zone. Regroup at the dropships. The mercenaries retreated, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead. They ran through the darkness toward their landing zone. They reached it and found smoking wreckage. Diane had planted explosives there hours ago. The dropships were destroyed. There would be no quick escape. 30 mercenaries were dead, 20 more wounded, and they still had not achieved any objective. Dexval made the hardest decision of his career. Command ship, send evacuation shuttles. We are aborting the mission. From his position in the facility, Jiho watched the mercenaries retreat on the tactical display. His team had suffered 0 casualties, not even a serious injury. Doyen had a cut on his arm from crawling through debris. That was it. Good work, everyone, Jiho said into his communicator. Yuna, how many? 12 confirmed kills, Yuna replied. Could have been more, but they stopped giving me clear targets. Sora, status on their communications? Still compromised. They are arguing with each other about what happened. Some think we had more soldiers. Some think we used forbidden weapons. One soldier is convinced we are not human at all. Jiho smiled. Let them think whatever they want. Hyan, any wounded mercenaries we should treat? 3 in the facility, all stable. I will patch them up and send them home with stories to tell. The evacuation shuttles arrived an hour later. The mercenaries loaded their dead and wounded and fled into space. Dexval sat in the command ship, staring at the tactical reports. 2 hours. The engagement had lasted 2 hours. 50 of his best soldiers against 12 humans. The humans had won decisively. He would report this to the Vortham Combine. He would tell them everything. He doubted they would believe him. On Kepler 442b, the human team cleaned their weapons and reset their traps. Tomorrow they would repair the damage to the facility. Tonight they would rest. But first, they gathered in the common room. Du Yun raised a drink. To a successful operation. The team repeated the toast. They were tired but satisfied. This was what they trained for. This was what they were good at. Jiho looked at his soldiers and felt grateful. Earth had sent him 12 of the best. 12 had been enough. Dexval stood before the council of the Vortham Combine and told his story. The council members listened in silence. When he finished, the silence continued for a long moment. Finally, the chief counselor spoke. You are telling us that 12 humans defeated 50 of our soldiers? Yes, counselor. And you are certain the intelligence was correct? There were only 12? The intelligence was accurate. 12 human soldiers. Special operations. Another counselor leaned forward. Dexval, you have served the Combine for 20 years. Your record is excellent. But this report is difficult to accept. Perhaps the humans had hidden reinforcements. Perhaps there were technical difficulties with our equipment. Dexval felt anger rising in his chest, but he controlled it. Counselor, I know what I saw. These humans fight differently than any enemy I have encountered. They do not follow standard doctrine. They use their environment as a weapon. They turn our own technology against us. And they do not seem to fear death. The council discussed among themselves. Finally, they reached a decision. We will not consider this a failure on your part, Dexval. Clearly, the mission parameters were incorrect. However, we cannot leave a contract unfulfilled. It damages our reputation. We will send a second force, larger and better prepared. Commander Krellanax will lead the operation. Dexval wanted to argue. He wanted to tell them that numbers would not matter against these humans. But he was a soldier, and soldiers followed orders. He nodded and left the chamber. Commander Krellanax was a legend in mercenary circles. He had broken sieges, destroyed fortresses, and defeated enemies that outnumbered him 10 to 1. When the Combine gave him the mission briefing, he read it with interest. Humans, he said. I have heard stories about them. Young species, aggressive, adaptable. This will be interesting. He assembled 300 of the Combine's finest soldiers. He studied every piece of intelligence. About the facility on Kepler 442b, he reviewed Dexval's combat recordings. He noted every tactic the humans had used. Then he planned his assault with care. He would not make the same mistakes. On Kepler 442b, Jiho received word that Earth Defense Force was sending reinforcements. Lieutenant Nari arrived with another squad of 12 soldiers. Now Jiho commanded 24 operators. I heard you had some excitement, Nari said, as she shook Jiho's hand. A warm-up exercise. But intelligence suggests they will try again. Bigger force this time. Nari smiled. Good. My team was getting bored on the transport ship. The two commanders reviewed the facility defenses. Do-Yun had already started preparing new surprises. Yuna had identified 3 additional sniper positions. Sora had upgraded the computer systems with better intrusion capabilities. Krellanax arrived at Kepler 442b with his 300 soldiers. He did not land close to the facility. Instead, he established a base camp 10 kilometers away. He sent reconnaissance drones to map the entire area. He studied the terrain for 3 days before making any move. These humans are clever, he told his officers. They use deception and guerrilla tactics. So we will not give them the chance. We will use biological weapons to clear the facility, then send in troops to secure it. On the third night, Krelanax launched his attack. But it was not a traditional assault. Instead, his forces released chemical agents designed to render the facility uninhabitable. They fired artillery at the building from a distance. They used saturation tactics, overwhelming the area with firepower. Inside the facility, alarms screamed. Jiho's team had minutes to respond. "Gas masks on!" "Hyan, what are we dealing with?" Hyan checked his instruments. "Nerve agent. Military grade. Fatal in minutes without protection. Then we relocate. Everyone to the secondary position. Nari, take your squad through the east tunnels. We go west. Move." The humans evacuated the facility through hidden tunnels that led deep underground. Krelanax watched his sensors, waiting for the humans to emerge and flee. They never did. The facility stood silent. They are dead or hiding, Krelanax decided. Send in the assault teams. Clear the structure room by room. 100 mercenaries entered the facility in full protective gear. They found it empty. No bodies, no humans. Just abandoned equipment and signs of rapid evacuation. "Sir, they fled through underground passages," one officer reported. "We have tunnel entrances in every section. Then collapse the tunnels. Trap them underground." The mercenaries planted explosives at every tunnel entrance and detonated them. Thousands of tons of rock and metal sealed the passages. Krelanax smiled. The humans were buried alive. The mission was complete, except the humans were not in the tunnels. They had used the tunnels to escape, but then they had circled back. Now they were behind the mercenary lines. Taiyang specialized in close-quarters combat. He moved through the darkness like a ghost, reaching the mercenary base camp. Guards stood at the perimeter. Taiyang took them down silently, one by one. Then he entered the command post. He found what he was looking for. Combat plans, communication codes, equipment manifests. He copied everything to a portable drive and slipped back into the darkness. The mercenaries never knew he had been there. SOR received the data from Taiyang and started working immediately. Within an hour, she had access to the entire mercenary battle network. She could see their positions, read their communications, and inject her own commands into their system. "Jiho, I have control of their network," she reported. "Show me what you can do." Sora typed commands. On the mercenary side, chaos erupted. Artillery units received targeting coordinates that pointed at their own positions. Supply convoys were redirected to wrong locations. Communications crossed, causing units to fire on each other in the darkness. Krelanax watched his carefully planned operation fall apart. What is happening? Who is interfering with our systems? His technical officers worked frantically to regain control. Every time they locked the humans out, Sora found another way in. It was a game, and she was winning. Yuna and her counterpart from Nari's squad, a sniper named Bora, took positions on opposite hills. They had clear views of the mercenary base camp. They began picking off targets systematically. Officers first, then technical specialists, then anyone who looked important. Doyin had been busy during the 3 days the mercenaries spent planning. He had planted explosives along every route between the facility and the base camp. Now he triggered them in sequence, destroying vehicles, cutting supply lines, and isolating mercenary units. The mercenaries fought back, but they were fighting shadows. Every time they thought they found the humans, they found empty positions. Every time they tried to regroup, explosions scattered them. Every time they tried to coordinate, their communications betrayed them. Nari led her squad in a direct assault on a mercenary supply depot. 12 humans against 40 mercenaries. The firefight was brutal and short. The humans won. They took weapons, ammunition, and medical supplies, then vanished before reinforcements arrived. For 6 days, the battle continued. The mercenaries had 300 soldiers, superior technology, and overwhelming firepower. The humans had 24 operators, knowledge of the terrain, and the will to never quit. 6 days later, Krelanax counted his losses. 210 dead, 60 wounded, only 30 soldiers still combat ready. He made the call to retreat. As his forces fled to their ships, he realized something terrible. He had not failed because of bad luck or poor planning. He had failed because these humans were simply better warriors. Word spread through the mercenary guilds. The humans on Kepler 442b were now famous, or infamous. Stories grew with each telling. Some said the humans could not be killed. Others claimed they could see in complete darkness. A few believed they were not soldiers at all, but some kind of engineered killing machines. Jiho sat with his team after the battle, cleaning weapons and counting their blessings. They had lost 2 soldiers, Minho and Yoonji, both from Nari's squad. They would be remembered. How many do you think they will send next time? Diane asked. Jiho shook his head. I do not know, but we will be ready. Crime Lord Vexter controlled 3 star systems and had wealth beyond measure. He dealt in illegal weapons, controlled smuggling routes, and owned politicians across a dozen worlds. When human special forces started interfering with his operations, he decided they needed to be eliminated. He contacted the Razor Talons, the most expensive mercenary guild in known space. Their success rate was 98%. Their reputation was flawless. When Vexter explained what he wanted, the guildmaster quoted a price that would bankrupt most governments. Vexter paid without hesitation. The guildmaster was named Vexter, same as the crime lord, which amused them both. Guildmaster Vexter studied every piece of available intelligence about human combat capabilities. He reviewed the disasters that had befallen the Vortham Combine. He studied human history, their wars, their military traditions. Thought what he learned disturbed him. Humans have been fighting each other for their entire history. War was woven into their culture, their stories, their identity. They had developed weapons that could destroy their entire planet, and they had come close to using them several times. Their special forces underwent training that most species would consider torture. Selection courses with 90% failure rates. Training in every environment, from Arctic ice to burning deserts to deep oceans. The most troubling was something called persistence hunting. Humans had evolved as endurance predators. On their home world, they would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Humans did not stop. They did not quit. They kept coming until they won or died. Guildmaster Vexter called a meeting with his officers. This will not be a simple contract. These humans are dangerous in ways we have not encountered before. We have 500 of the best soldiers in the galaxy, one officer replied. Surely that is enough against 18 humans. Perhaps, but we will take every precaution. I will lead this operation personally. Captain Sunho commanded the human reconnaissance team that had been disrupting the crime lord's operations. 18 soldiers operating deep in hostile territory, living off the land and striking at smuggling routes with surgical precision. When Sora's intelligence network picked up chatter about a massive mercenary force coming for them, Sunho called his team together. We have 500 Razor Talons incoming. Best of the best. Guildmaster is leading them personally. His second in command, a soldier named Inho, whistled softly. They are taking us seriously, as they should. But here is our advantage. They are coming here, to our territory. We have been operating in this region for 8 months. We know every mountain, every valley, every cave. They are stepping into our home. The team prepared for a siege. They scattered supplies across the region. They identified fallback positions and safe houses. They cached weapons and ammunition. Most importantly, they prepared mentally for a long fight. The Razor Talons arrived with overwhelming force. 500 soldiers, the best equipment money could buy, and a commander who had never lost a contract. They landed in 6 different zones, establishing multiple bases to prevent the humans from attacking supply lines. Guildmaster Vexter studied the terrain and formulated his plan. The humans will use guerrilla tactics, so we will deny them the opportunity. We sweep the entire region in a coordinated grid pattern. Nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. The operation began at dawn. 500 mercenaries advancing in organized lines, scanning every rock, every tree, every shadow. The net tightened around the humans' last known position. They found nothing. The humans were already gone, watching from high mountain positions as the mercenaries swept empty ground. Sunho split his team into 6 groups of 3. Each group had a specific mission. They would not fight a single battle. They would fight dozens of small battles, wearing down the enemy through constant pressure. The first attack came that night. 3 humans hit a mercenary supply depot. They used explosives made from local materials, simple but effective. The depot burned. 6 mercenaries died. The humans vanished into the darkness. The second attack came 2 hours later at a different location. Another supply cache destroyed. More casualties. Guildmaster Vexter realized his mistake. By spreading his forces across multiple bases, he had created multiple targets. He ordered his soldiers to consolidate into 3 main camps. Stronger defenses, better security. The humans adapted. If they could not hit supplies, they would hit personnel. Minji, the communications specialist, began broadcasting on mercenary frequencies. Every hour, she announced the casualty count. 14 Razor Talons dead. How many more will die before you realize this contract is not worth it? The psychological warfare worked. Mercenaries began questioning the mission. They were dying for money, while the humans seemed to be fighting for something else. Something that made them willing to endure hardship that would break most soldiers. On the 3rd day, a mercenary patrol encountered 3 humans in a narrow canyon. The fight was brief and brutal. The mercenaries had superior numbers and firepower, but the humans had trained for this exact scenario. They used the terrain, forcing the mercenaries into a kill zone where numbers meant nothing. 5 mercenaries died. The humans escaped with minor wounds. Guildmaster Vexter increased patrols. He used drones for constant surveillance. He established strict protocols for movement and communication. Every tactical decision he made was correct, according to military doctrine. But doctrine meant nothing against humans who refused to follow the rules. Sunho's team operated for days without real sleep. They took turns resting for 1 or 2 hours, while others kept watch. It was a rotation they had practiced during selection training, when instructors had kept them awake for a week to test their limits. The mercenaries needed 8 hours of rest per day. The humans needed only fragments of sleep stolen between battles. On the 5th day, the mercenaries tried a new tactic. They captured a human supply cache. Guildmaster Vexter expected the humans to attack to recover it. Instead, the humans ignored it. They had already moved their supplies elsewhere. The cache was bait, and the humans did not take it. Minji continued her broadcasts. 41 dead. How much is the crime lord paying you? Is it enough to die for? Some mercenaries began deserting. Not many, but enough to worry the guild master. Desertion was rare among the Razor Talons. These were professional soldiers who had chosen this life. But something about fighting humans broke their will to continue. On the 6th day, Sunho made a decision. His team had been running and hiding for too long. It was time to hit back hard. He gathered his 18 soldiers for a direct assault on the main mercenary camp. They expect us to be afraid, he told his team. They expect us to run. So we do the opposite. We attack their strongest position with everything we have. The assault came at midnight. 18 humans against 200 mercenaries in a fortified camp. It should have been suicide. Instead, it was chaos. The humans had studied the camp for days. They knew every weak point, every gap in the defenses. They struck simultaneously from 6 different directions. Explosives destroyed communication towers and power generators. Snipers took out sentries and officers. Assault teams penetrated deep into the camp, causing confusion and panic. The mercenaries fought back, but they were defending against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. The battle lasted 4 hours. When the humans withdrew, they left behind destruction and disorder. 30 mercenaries dead, the command post damaged, and morale shattered. Guildmaster Vexter sat in the ruins of his camp and made a decision that would cost him his reputation. He contacted the crime lord and told him the contract was cancelled. He would return the payment. "You are quitting?" The crime lord demanded. "I am preventing unnecessary losses. My guild has lost 400 soldiers. The humans show no signs of weakening. This contract is unwinnable. I will destroy your reputation. My reputation is built on success. Continuing this disaster would destroy it faster. The contract is void." The Razor Talons retreated from the region. Word spread instantly. The most elite mercenary guild in known space had quit a contract. They had been broken by 18 humans who refused to surrender. 5 years passed. The mercenary guilds prospered. Business was good across the galaxy. Wars were fought, contracts were fulfilled, and profits flowed. But whenever someone mentioned contracts against human special forces, the conversation stopped. The guildmasters gathered for their annual summit on Neutral Station. Representatives from every major mercenary organization attended. The Vortham Combine, the Razor Talons, the Crimson Brotherhood, the Iron Pact, and a dozen smaller guilds. They came to discuss business, share intelligence, and negotiate territories. But this year, there was an additional topic on the agenda. The human problem. Guildmaster Vexter of the Razor Talons stood before the assembly and presented his report. Behind him, a holographic display showed statistics that made seasoned warriors uncomfortable. Over the past 5 years, 47 contracts have been accepted against human special forces units. Of these 47 contracts, 47 have failed. The room was silent. Guildmaster Vexter continued. Total casualties, 3,214 mercenaries dead. Another 900 wounded seriously enough to end their careers. Financial losses, equivalent to the GDP of a small planet. Average engagement time before retreat, 14 hours. Survival rate for mercenaries, 31%. Commander Thexvol of the Vortham Combine spoke up. The numbers tell only part of the story. I have fought on 40 worlds against dozens of different species. Humans fight differently than anyone else. They do not surrender. They do not break. They have a saying, "The only easy day was yesterday." It means every day they push themselves harder than the day before. A representative from the Crimson Brotherhood asked, "But surely we can develop tactics to counter them." "They are still flesh and blood. They can be killed." "Of course they can be killed," Dexful replied. "We have killed them, but the cost is too high. Let me show you something." The holographic display changed to show combat footage from various engagements. Mercenaries watched humans rappelling down cliffs that should have been impassable. They saw human soldiers swimming through chemically contaminated water to reach an objective. They watched footage of humans operating for 72 hours without sleep, still maintaining combat effectiveness. One clip showed a human soldier with a broken leg, still returning fire while crawling to cover. Another showed a human medic treating wounded mercenaries, even though those same mercenaries had been trying to kill her minutes before. A third clip showed a human team cornered and outnumbered, and instead of surrendering, They started singing some kind of battle song while continuing to fight. "That last clip troubles me most," Dexville said. They were starving, wounded, outnumbered 20-1. And they were singing. They were enjoying the fight. Another guildmaster stood. "I have studied human culture. War is their tradition. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years. They developed complex military strategies while most of us were still using stone tools. They created martial arts, warrior codes, military academies. Their entertainment is filled with stories about soldiers who never quit, who win against impossible odds. I have reviewed their training programs," another speaker added. "Their special forces candidates go through selection courses that last months. They are kept awake for a week at a time. They are forced to swim in near-freezing water. They carry massive weights over mountains. They are pushed until their bodies break, and then they are pushed harder. The failure rate is 90% or higher. Only the toughest survive. And those survivors become the soldiers we face." The discussion continued for hours. Guildmasters shared their experiences, their theories, their fears. A pattern emerged from all the stories. Humans had a quality that no other species seemed to possess in the same measure. They simply did not know how to quit. Finally, the vote was called. The resolution was simple. Human special forces would be added to the universal blacklist. No mercenary guild would accept contracts against them. The vote was unanimous. The next day, Colonel Jiho received an unusual message. The mercenary guilds requested his presence at their summit. They would guarantee his safety and pay for his transport. They wanted to talk. Jiho brought 4 of his original team members with him: Yuna, Diane, Sora, and Hyan. They arrived at the neutral station and were escorted to the summit chamber with full honors. The mercenaries watched these 5 humans with a mixture of respect and wariness. Guildmaster Vexter welcomed them. "Colonel Jiho, thank you for accepting our invitation. We wanted to meet the man who started all of this." Jiho smiled. "I did not start anything. I just did my job. Your job has cost us thousands of lives and immeasurable resources. We have a question for you, and we hope you will answer honestly. What makes human special forces so effective? What is your secret?" Jiho looked at his team, then back at the assembled mercenaries. "You want to know our secret? There is no secret. We train harder than you. We fight longer than you. We endure more than you. But most importantly, we do not fight for money. We fight for each other, for our homes, for something bigger than ourselves." "That cannot be the only reason," another guild master insisted. "You are right. There is more. You asked what makes us effective. The answer is simple. We train to win, not just to survive. And we have been doing it to each other for thousands of years. Every war we fought taught us something new. Every defeat made us better. We learned from Romans and Mongols and Vikings. We studied Spartans and samurai and special air service. We took the best lessons from every warrior culture in our history and built something new." Jiho paused, looking at each guildmaster in turn. "You are the latest enemy we face. You are not the first, and you will not be the last. The difference between you and us is simple. You fight because someone pays you. We fight because we choose to. You retreat when the cost gets too high. We keep fighting because that is what we do." The chamber was silent. Finally, Dexville spoke. "We have voted to blacklist human special forces. No guild will accept contracts against you. This is not out of respect, though you have earned that. It is simple economics. The cost exceeds the reward." "I understand," Jiho replied. "And honestly, that is fine with us. We would rather not fight you. We would rather focus on real threats." "One more question," Vexter asked. "If we were to offer you positions in our guilds, would you accept?" Humans as mercenaries could be extremely profitable. Jiho shook his head. Most of us would not. We do not fight for profit. But some might. Humans are individuals. We make our own choices. If some of my species choose to become mercenaries, that is their decision. Just remember, if you hire humans, they will bring the same intensity to your guild that they brought to fighting you. The meeting concluded. Jiho and his team returned to Earth. The mercenary guilds returned to their business. But something had changed in the galaxy. Human special forces had earned a reputation that would last for generations. Decades later, a young mercenary sat in his guild hall, receiving his first major contract briefing. The target was a shipping route protected by a small military force. The pay was excellent. The risk seemed manageable. Then he read the fine print. The military force was human special forces. 12 soldiers. The young mercenary stared at the contract for a long moment. He thought about the stories he had heard. He thought about the statistics. He thought about the universal blacklist that every guild still honored. Then he tore up the contract. Find another fool, he told his handler. I do not care how much they are paying. I'm not fighting humans. His handler nodded without argument. She had expected this response. Everyone did these days. Somewhere on a distant colony world, a small team of human soldiers stood watch over a peaceful settlement. They did not know they were famous across the galaxy. They did not care. They were just doing their job, the same job humans had done for thousands of years, protecting their own, standing to watch, ready for whatever came next, because that was what they were trained to do. That was what they had always done. And that was what they would always do, for as long as humanity existed among the stars.